Hello and welcome back to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing a little bit of work in Canvas, but you can do everything that I'm going to do today actually on the machine too. So just bear with me one moment while I get comments up. So hopefully I should be able to see everybody's comments if it'll play. Come on, play ball for me. Let's go that way. So, hi Deb, hi Carol, hi Sandra, and if you're watching on the group, I'll say a very brief hello, but I can't see comments just at the moment. So, I'm starting off with the diamond lace files that you can find on Polkadoodle. So this is a file that I've designed, and I wanted to cover a few of the issues, questions, things that you might encounter with SVGs. So first of all, I had a question the other day about what SVGs are compatible with your ScanNCut, and the answer is most of them. But usually if you find that there's a glitch, it's usually something to do with how the file's been exported, so long as you're looking at files that have a nice flat colour to them. So if they are just black and white with no shading, if they're different colours but they're all flat colours, no drop shadows or anything fancy, chances are they will work straight away in your machine with very little input. And Ian's hovering. You alright? Okay. So I'm actually streaming from a bit of a different location today. Ian's kicked me out of the studio, so hence we're on the software today. I didn't kick you out. So, let's get started. I'm going to create a wedding card today. And I'm going to be working with the files that I've designed, but I'm also going to bring in some of the free files that you can download from design bundles. So if you want to download those and have a play, we can do. And with this file here, you can see that we've got lots of different pieces. They're overlapping and you're like, oh, it looks complicated. Don't panic. So if we go into our layers, you might see something that looks like this and you're like, oh no, how does that make any sense? So if you scroll to the bottom, if you find a file that has something like this where you've got like shape, as in a black shape, and then lots of blue lines, all those blue lines mean is that it's intended to be a draw line. So you're going to find that each group is going to start with another black shape. So if we press and hold shift and we click, we're going to select everything in that panel. We're then going to do Command and G or Control and G on a PC, and that's going to group it. Now that grouping is important, so that means that when we start to move things about, it means that they are going to all move together. Okay, so I can move that one out of the way, and then we can do the next step. So click on the black shape, go to the shape below the next black shape, shift and click, and you should get a nice blue section, and again we can group. Now these SVGs have been brought in using the file import from your computer, because there's a couple of ways that we can import SVGs. They don't make a lot of difference, but it's worth noting just in case you do something you think you've done it wrong. So I'm going to group all of these so we can have them scattered around. And I'm going to put them all outside our red line. Hi Zena, hi Thea. And I do apologise if I'm missing any comments. Facebook is interesting on my phone, shall I say. So let's group that one again. Now at the moment all these blue lines are still set to cut rather than draw. So we'll go through and we'll sort that after. It's more important that you get your grouping done first so you don't accidentally nudge anything or move anything. So with those all grouped, I can move those off the mat and out of our active area. So next, we can actually import our main file that we want. So I'm going to go to SVG and show you the other way of doing it. And I'm going to go to my downloads. I'm going to go to my recent downloads. Let's try that again, shall we? There we go. And you have something that looks like this, where you've got lots of designs in one folder. And sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming. But let's go for something that you might put on a nice wedding card. Let's go forever and always, because that's kind of sweet. And usually what you'll find with the files that you download from design bundles or Creative Fabrica or ScanNCut or many other websites is that you're going to have multiple file options. So the PNG and the JPEGs are images, so these aren't going to be suitable for cutting unless you go and do an image trace, and it's not the best way to be doing things, because basically images are made up of lots of little dots, and when you do a trace, if the image isn't of a high enough quality, you can start to get little jagged bits down the edges. Whereas your SVG and your DXF files are vector based, so that means that they're based on paths, and that path is going to be what tells your blade where to go. In terms of the two formats, DXF is an older format, but it tends to be more widely accepted on lots of different platforms, which is why you'll find it on lots of different sites. EPSs are older still. So I was designing with EPSs way back in the day. And SVGs are really the new kid on the block. They were never intended to be for cut machines. So there are lots of things that you can do with an SVG that won't work for your ScanNCut. So for instance, you can put effects on different layers, so things like drop shadows, glows, etc. And obviously when that goes to your machine, it's going to throw an error and go, I don't know what to do with that. So if you have something that goes, chances are it's got effects built into it. Now that isn't to say that you can't then use that file. It just means that what you need to do is take it into something like Affinity Designer, Inkscape, Illustrator, and just sort that out to take those effects off. Oh, hey Joyce, you snuck in. Hope you're feeling better. So, Ian is currently doing a little bit of rejigging in the studio. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so something like this where it is black and white is perfect for our cutting machines. So it's going to be nice and easy for it to recognise. No effects or anything. Now, again, you're going to see that it's going to come in and you've got 3 separate shapes. So again, what I would recommend is group them, especially if you like the layout, and then you can edit them as a whole. So by grouping it, it means that we can resize it as we need to. And when we do things like offsetting, it's easier to do it as a group. Now, if you're working in some other software, other ways that you might do this, if you were absolutely set on that design, then you can use merge. But with some software, it doesn't like non-overlapping shapes. So Canvas is one of those. So that's when we use group. Okay. So if we want to go in and edit this, we can put it in different colours if it's for our reference, for example. So if we go that, okay, we're going to put our always in gold. We can go to our little paint bucket here, and it's going to pull up our colours panel. You can then set it to a gold colour. Now I have the crayons because I'm on a Mac. If you're on a PC, you won't see those, but you'll see the PC equivalent. So it could be that you go to your little wheel and we go, okay, I'm going to make that a bit more golden. There you go. So if you're on a Mac and you think, oh, I haven't got enough colours, go across the slider and you can do that. And we might go for our little ampersand. We'll do that in silver. So there you go. And likewise, you've got your little kind of basic colours, your web safe colours, your developer colours. It's slightly different on a PC. Your spectrum is going to be more like if you want to really get involved in design, but to be honest, unless you have the printer cut, it's not worth it in Canvas. So just keep it nice and simple for your reference only. Okay, so let's put that in a different shade of gold. So we've got always and forever, and then we can put in one of our backgrounds. So decide how big you want your card. So these all come in at their original size. So we can go for a nice big A5 card if we want to. And we could go much smaller. It all depends on what you fancy doing. So let's go slimline for a change. So there's our background. So now if we think about our text, what I'll do is let's shrink all these up so we can easily hide bits and pieces. So if we click on the little eyes, we can hide things. And that's good for when we're working with layers, so it's good practice to do this little section of hiding things. And it's there should we ever need to come back to it. But this is going to be the one that we want. So I'm going to take that group and I'm just going to drag it up to the top so that I know that's the one I'm working with. Now if we look at our text, we've got all these little thin bits in here. Now obviously they are not going to cut very well from card necessarily, unless you're working on something quite thick, and even then, because the way that blades work, it can struggle a little bit. So let's give it a little bit of help. So for starters, I'm going to give it a base that we can work on to. So if we go to basic shapes, you're going to see that you have lots of options down here. So these are all your basic shapes, where you've got the circle and triangle at the top. And there are loads of things that you can do just with these shapes alone. So I've covered those quite a bit in previous videos, so if you want to go back and watch those. Next we have our borders. You've got your words, which is like really basic sentiment designs. Then if you have some of the add-ons, you're going to see a few more icons. So I have the paper piercing, so we have the piercing designs and the vinyl blade, so you'll see the designs for those in there too. So any add-on kits, you should see a little icon on this side, but for the most part you're going to have these top three. So I'm going to go for, let's do something a little bit different. I'm going to go for this little heart here, because we haven't done a heart in ages. Now when we bring in a shape, for starters, it's going to come in a standard size. So all I did was click on the shape, so it's going to put it in the top left. You can also click and drag it in as well, but for now that was fine. And you're going to see it's going to come in on top. So obviously if we've got that text that we want to put onto our base, we're going to want to have that on top. So that'd be good. There we go. So now we have our group, our heart shape, and our panel underneath. So let's put a fill in our heart shape to help us see better. We're going to go up to the fill again. Now, because we're on that basic shape, you're going to find that your opacity has dropped down to 0. So basically all you have showing at the moment is the outline of the shape, also known as the stroke. Whereas this time we want to work with a fill, which is the centre bit. So I'm going to put that opacity up to 100, and you're going to see it's going to turn black, but we can set that to white. So we still keep that black outline, but we're going to block out everything underneath. Now, if we select the shape and the group, then what we can actually do is align them to each other. So if we go into edit, we're going to go down to align, and we're going to centre it and centre it, like so. But we've got these weird bits that are kind of falling off the edge. So what can we do about those to make that a little better? Well, for starters, I'm going to go back to layer. I'm going to click on my group, so I've just got that group highlighted. I'm going to duplicate that group. So this little icon down here with the square and the plus sign. And that's going to add another copy, but it's going to be across a bit and down a bit. Now obviously we want those two to be overlapping so that when we are working with one, it's in the right place for the other. So if we select both groups, we're going to go to align, we're going to align left and align top, which is going to bring that duplicated copy back to where it was originally. Now at this point, click off everything. So that's so that you know that you aren't accidentally going to do a weld of too many shapes in this next section. So I'm going to select one of the groups and the shape. We can go down to process overlap and we can weld. And you're going to see that it takes those two shapes and it's going to turn it into a gold mass. And that's because that gold shape was on top. It's also going to bring it up to the top of your list. So we still have our original copy of our text below. So again, we need to take that shape. We're going to click and drag and bring it right down. Now, see how you've got that circle over to the left hand side, just by my arrow? You want to make sure that that's that far over and not at that level there, because that's going to put it inside the group. Whereas if we make sure that circle moves over, it's going to be there. So if it was in line with these images here now, you know, it's inside that group, but because it's set back, you know, it's a shape in and of itself. Now obviously at this point we can't see our always, it's still there, it's just that that bottom shape is the same colour. So let's give it a fill of white, and we can see our strokes disappeared, and it's got this black and white line, so that means that it's got a 0 opacity, so it's see-through. So again, take it up to the 100 and you can see that come back. And so far so good. So we now have our shape and our text, and we want to try and keep those together as much as possible. So again, even though we've got a group, we can still group it and have a group within a group. Okay, so far so good. That then means that we can move the shape around to where we need it. So we can select those two. I'm going to go to line and center so that it makes sure that everything is lined up. But don't worry about your vertical alignment. You just put that where you want it. Now we can create another layer that we can put underneath. So if we go and open that group again, you've got the shape with the heart. And again, even though it's within that group, we can duplicate. Okay. So I'm going to take those two. And again, we're going to go to align, left and top, so that new shape is in the right place. I'm going to click off it so that I know I don't have anything selected that shouldn't be. And with that top shape selected, you want to make sure it's just that one. I'm going to take that out of the group for a moment. And we're going to do an offset. So if we go down to the bottom of the edit menu, you've got create offset line. Now we can set an offset outwards or inwards. So I want to go outwards because I want to create a background. So the amount that you want to set is entirely up to you. I'm going to take that down just a little bit. It's a little bit too big for me. So 0.1 should do. And corner type round, yeah, that's going to be fine for what this is. Now you also have the option for the inside holes. So if we look down here where we've got the curl from our letter, we've got a hole in the middle. Now if we just go round the outside, it's going to fill in the entirety of that hole, or you can choose to untick the box and it's going to go around the inside of that hole. Now there's no right answer, it's entirely down to your personal preference, per design, whatever you want to do. I think personally for this one I'm going to do it so that it traces through the hole. It's also going to say what do you want to do about the original line. Now because we've done that duplicate, we don't need to keep that original line, so we can just go delete. Now if you wanted to, you could set that original line to a drawing line, and that's going to give you a template as to where to put your next layer. So if you want to go to the trouble of doing that, then you can do that as a guide. But for me, I'm just going to leave it as delete. I'm going to go OK. And it's going to offset it outwards. Now it's going to look again like it's gone missing because it's taken that fill out. But let's pop in a gold colour into that fill. Now see. Right. It remembers where you were last time, so just make sure that you click on there. And again, we can see it's at the top. And you can see you've got this separate shape here. So it's a little bit naughty when it does offset. So typically if you're working in any other program, it would already have punched through that hole for you automatically. Canvas on the other hand wants you to do it. So at the moment it's a group, so I'm going to ungroup it. So that's Command Shift G or Control Shift G on a PC. We're going to go to Edit. We're going to go down to Process Overlap again. And this time we're going to go to Subtract. So that's where you've got the dotted circle here and this funny little shape here. And that's going to punch that hole through your backing panel. Now we can drop that in there. And we have a lovely little panel that we can then create our sentiment with. So there you go. And just to finish it off, I'm going to get another basic shape. This time let's go for a rectangle. And let's mirror our heart panel and try and go for one that's got a bit of a scalloped edge to it. So go. Kind of. This one's a bit too scalloped. There we go. So I'm going to rotate this. Now, if you see how I'm rotating here, it's just basically clicking and dragging that top handle. But I have shift pressed at the same time. So that's a press and a hold. And as we do that, it's going to snap to the 45 and the 90 degrees. So we know that our shape is straight. I'm going to take that up here. Maybe just down a little bit. There we go. And then I can click and drag that bottom corner, and it's going to keep things in proportion. Now, I'm going to try and do this. Now, if we do a stretch to make that fit, what you're going to find is all those lovely scallops are going to be stretched. So your bottom and top will be like these little kind of humps, whereas the ones down the side are going to be really elongated. So what we want to do instead, if I undo that, is if we duplicate again, and this time we're going to select both shapes, and this time we're just going to align to the left, just so that we know that those two shapes are in line. I'm going to take that one copy, I'm going to click on it, but not click and drag. Now this time I can use my shift and downwards arrow key on my keyboard so that I can make sure I start to align this. And you want to get to the point where your lines look the narrowest they're going to be. So about there. And with those two shapes now overlapping, we can go back to our layer palette, select both, back to edit and merge, and we've created a backing panel. And again, let's give it a colour just to make it easier for us to see. So let's put that in that kind of dark and gold colour, like so. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drop it right down at the back of our design. And there you go. We have a nice wedding card design that you can use. So when you get these backgrounds, you can see these little round bits here. And it might be that you think, oh, those are a bit weird, what are they for? And the idea is that you can stick a nice little pearl or gem or sequin or anything you like, a nouveau drop even, as that like a finishing point for your lace.
Does it cut it out?
What the?
Little hole.
Yeah, it has it like a. Oh right, yeah, you could put like an extra hole through if you want to do like a little loop embellishment, something like that. Now, I did say one last thing I'm just going to show you. And we finally need to make these lines draw. So if we do a shift and click so that we have all those blue lines selected, you can see at the top that it's a dash line, so you can change that pattern of that dash, so it's quite flexible. That's the word I'm looking for. And I'm going to go and set it to draw. So that means that when we send it to our machine, it's going to be blue on our machine and we're going to know to draw it. Now, if you have the piercing add-on, you can change it to that too, and it will look cool. So it's been designed for both options. And there you go. Nice little wedding card to get you started. So with your text, what I would say is you're going to want to cut that out in vinyl, because that's going to be the most forgiving for that text. Transfer it with some transfer tape to your card base. So this little white heart here. You can then 3D foam that up if you want to onto your gold heart underneath. And then you can cut and draw your panel with the lace. And finally, you have your backing panel. Now you can see it's gone just above our red line, so just select it all and drag it down. Otherwise, when you send it to your machine, it's going to throw a bit of a wobbly. Then everything is still hidden. If you're happy with your design and you don't want to keep that in that file anymore, we can just go and delete those shapes. Now, the other thing that people tend to get confused with is saving. So when we go to Save As, and I'm just going to make my panel a bit bigger here, and I'm going to drop it onto the desktop and give it the name Wedding Card. Now this is going to save a CWPRJ file, which is what we use when we're working in Canvas. So it's going to keep all this data here and grouping and all the rest of the whatnots. But if we were to put that onto a USB and put that into our machine, it's not going to read. So at the same time as you're saving, you want to go to Export Transfer FCM file. Now, if you're going to cut this now, then what you want to do is transfer it via the internet to your machine and off you go. But if you're saving this for later, just export an FCM file just so that you have a copy. That way you can always load it into your machine. The other trick is, if you are working with an SVG file that is really, really complicated, so lots of shapes to it, and your machine sees the SVG and goes, too big, too many lines, take it into Canvas first, and when you export it to FCM, it's going to override a lot of that and make it a bit quicker to go onto your machine, because it's not having to do that conversion process. Any questions?
Not at the moment.
Let's have a look. So I've got Carol singing. And hi Louise. So again, if you're commenting on the group, sadly I can't see your comments at the moment, but I will always come back and answer questions. So if you do have any questions about anything that I've covered tonight, or anything you want me to go into more detail about, then you can either pop it in the comments on this video, or you can message me or Plannercraft, or you can just ask it as a question in the main groups. That's ScanNCut and Papercraft courses, classes and workshops by Plannercraft. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you Thursday. So we're going to have a change of day this week. So it's going to be Thursday at 7 p.m. So that's 7 p.m. UK time. So for those of you that are elsewhere, you can use Google to check what time it is locally for you. And I hope that's helped. So take care for now, and we will have fun Thursday with a little bit of scrapbooking with the ScanNCut. So this could be interesting, especially if the studio's not done yet. So have fun and bye.